Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I started this gangster shit, and this the motherfucking thanks I get? Hello.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss Local Hero, which came out in 1983 from writer-director Bill Forsyth. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis for Local Hero?
Well, the story follows Peter Riegert, who plays McIntyre. McIntyre works for Knox Oil and Gas Company in Houston, Texas, and is tasked with the mission to head to a small Scottish town to pay all the locals to move away so that they can build an oil refinery on the town's location. When Mac gets to the town, though, he starts to settle into the idyllic nature and the quietness of this small little village. But the locals really want to sell up.
This is a film that I'd almost forgotten. It wasn't until it was requested as a review that I actually even remembered the film, and can't even believe that I forgot this small gem of a film. Of course, most people, when they remember Bill Forsyth's movies, they'll think of Gregory's Girl or Being Human in 1994 with Robin Williams. They're all very unique films in that they are very distinctly a Bill Forsyth written and directed films. They're very gentle films that deal with characters changing just very slightly. And Local Hero is no exception to that. I also find it interesting that Bill Forsyth never watched Local Hero after he had finished production on it. Not until nearly 25 years later would he actually watch the film himself. In an interview with Mark Kermode, he actually went on to say that the film came from a dark place, and that the script was inherently fairly dark as well.
I was just trying to position people in terms of the ambitions for it, that it wasn't just a kind of light-hearted thing, that there were going to be undercurrents of serious issues and human things in it. I think that's really what I was trying to say. There was a little bit of war in it.
So I was very surprised when I sat down to watch this film. I'd already, like I always do, Wikipedia and research the movies, and I was just like, well, this seems like nothing's going to happen. I was worried I was going to sit down and it was just going to just drag. It's got quite a long running time. I hadn't even looked at the running time until I was watching the film thinking, shit, this movie is almost 2 hours long. Is it going to hold my attention for that long? And I realized that was me personally. I'd sat through so much blood, guts, gore, violence, guns, swearing, sexual nature, and everything past the rating of 15.
The good stuff.
All the good stuff. I'd been oversaturated by it. So then when I sat down to watch this film, like the village itself, nothing happens. Like Gary says, it's all about characters developing. We start off with Mac, played by Peter Riegert, who I've only ever seen him in one other film, and that was The Mask, and he played Lieutenant Kellaway. And so he's tasked with this mission to go to Furness, I think it is, to buy up the land. And his boss, Burt Lancaster, runs the company, the oil company. And you can tell that Mac is very much a businessman. His watch is set to, meeting times. He's always on the phone to people. He tells you straight away that he can settle a deal over the phone, like that. Why does he need to go to Scotland to do it? And they keep saying to him, it's because you're Mac.
It's a complete misunderstanding where he's called Mac McIntyre. So they're like, well, you're clearly Scottish then, aren't you? So you're the right man for the job.
Do I really have to go there? I'm more of a telex man. I could fix the deals in an afternoon over the phones, like with Salinas last year.
It's not like Mexico, McIntyre. We're dealing with people like ourselves. You're a Scot. You'll be dealing with your own people. That's why you're going.
Well, anyway, you're going to Scotland. The old country. Hey, McIntyre.
Yes, sir.
And then you got, before he even gets to Scotland, you got Burt Lancaster saying to him, like, right, okay, yeah, you've got to go here. You've got to sell this deal. We want to turn the whole coastal village into an oil refinery, and the pipes are going to be laid here and that and the next thing. But Burt Lancaster's character, Felix Happer, he's not even really interested in taking over this town and making oil and making more money than he's actually got at the moment. He's actually more interested in the stars. He keeps telling Mac, keep your eye on Virgo. You know, if something happens in Virgo, I want you to tell me straight away. And McIntyre's just like, what are you going on about? And you can tell that there's something going on with Burt Lancaster's character there, where he's the head of this corporation, but he just hasn't fulfilled himself in his life. You know, it's very easy to just get blown away by all the money that your company makes, but ultimately, you know, you've got to do something for yourself.
There is a wonderful bit of trivia where Burt Lancaster's character, Felix Happer, has, in reality, had a comet named after him. And I just think that, you know, it's the throwback to this film that you just kind of think that character finally did get a comet named after him. I just think that's really sweet.
Yeah. You know, and then we follow Mac when he gets to Scotland and he meets up with Peter Capaldi playing Oldson. And I've only watched a few things with Peter Capaldi in, but he's such a brilliant actor. I watched a few episodes of The Thick of It, where he was the Prime Minister or the Prime Minister's aide, and he was swearing his fucking head off.
Fucking hang up, haven't you? Fucking hoity-toity.
Hey, buddy,
fucking...
hey. Enough with the curse words, all right?
Kiss my sweaty balls, you fat fuck.
And at the same time, at the moment, he's playing the most recent Doctor Who, and I'm a bit of a Doctor Who fan as well. And so when he's on screen, he keeps your attention, and he's kind of, I don't know, he's like a nerdy schoolboy kind of around Mac. You know, he's like the apprentice to him. You know, you see him at the airport, and he's hiding that little sign. You know, and people are like looking at the sign. He's just like hiding it back under his jacket, and Mac comes up to him like, "Yeah, I'm McIntyre," and he's like, "Oh yeah, I just didn't want to make it a big thing." And like I said, I was very surprised because I thought it was just going to be this big all-out war of we're not going to sell and you're not going to destroy the local nature with oil and this, that, and the next thing. But once they get to the village...
Oh wait, before they get to the village, they have a small incident on the road.
Oh yes, yeah. And but that's not even like a big scene. They stop in the middle of this fog, and I'm like, yeah, he's probably stopped because he can't drive anywhere. But you know, Peter Capaldi's like, we hit something. And I'm like, really? Did I miss something? And they get out of the car and they go and they notice this little rabbit. And they take the rabbit and it's like, oh, it's just stunned. You know, we'll just take care of it. That rabbit was a brilliant actor. It just sat there. Just sat there and did its part. And so they take the rabbit to the village and they meet the local hotel owner and a chartered accountant, played by Dennis Lawson, who you may recognise as Wedge Antilles from the Star Wars trilogy. And the message gets around. You know, news travels fast in this tiny little town that somebody's here to buy up all the land and, you know, turn it into an oil refinery. And the locals want to sell. They're happy to sell their land for over £1 million because to them, that's the most money they'll ever see in their life. You know, they're busy trying to fish, you know, and keep the hotels running and the general store running. And, you know, they probably never really get visitors. They're the same people they see year in, year out. But now somebody comes along with a checkbook and, you know, money to throw at them. They're like, give it. We just want to get the fuck out of here.
And that there really is the crux, the conception, the idea that spawned this film was having this American turn up with almost an unlimited checkbook and turning the entire town into millionaires overnight. That's where this entire story has come from, and you can really see why the original concept for it would probably be quite dark, yet a lot of this is played very light-heartedly and it's done quite gently.
Yeah, there's a conflict of nature, I suppose. I mean, Mac turns up and he's wanting it to be all hush-hush. You know, he doesn't want anybody finding out just in case they get the wrong idea. But obviously the locals find out and they want to just sell immediately. So you're waiting for them to meet up in the middle to sell, you know. But the time Mac spends there, I mean, they say it's a couple of weeks.
Well, Gordon wants to make the deal, but he also doesn't want to sell the town out cheap.
Yeah.
So he decides to drag out the negotiations as long as possible so that the town of Furness can seduce Mac into raising the price, because he'll realise how wonderful and special the place is, so he will pay more knowing what damage will be done to this place. Well, as a result, it would all be destroyed.
But then that's funny because on the other side, you've got Mac, who's waiting for Gordon to come back with the idea, but he's willing on dragging it out a little bit more because he wants to settle the deal. So he's happy to pay whatever they need to obviously close the deal. And so, like I said, the villagers are like up and down with each other. We're going to meet. Oh, no, we're just going to drag it out a little bit more. And we follow Mac's time in the village, and he starts to... The symbology started to appear to me where he goes down to the beach. You know, there's a couple of shots of him and Peter Capaldi walking along the beach in their suits and their nice shoes and with their briefcases. And it looks well out of place. You know, they're businessmen from the city, come to this small town. They don't want to be here for very long. The longer they spend there, though, you watch as Max walking along the beach, gets his shoes wet, takes his shoes and socks off, starts letting his feet go into the sand and enjoying himself. He takes his watch off, leaves it on the rocks to pick up shells. And then you notice that he's left his watch. And so he's kind of letting go of that part of himself and settling into this quiet little idyllic seaside town.
Completely. He gets totally seduced by the town. And as an audience member, you kind of see it happening very subtly. And that is the pure beauty of the filmmaking, is that there isn't a point in the film where you go, he's under the spell of the town now. It just happens naturally. You believe that Mac feels the way that he does progressively throughout the film, and it comes naturally. But what I really like is the comedy moments in the film that are not belly laughs, but they're just little moments that just of the oddities of the town. Like every time Mac steps out of the hotel, the motorbike goes racing past. Like from nowhere to go nowhere. You'll find other shots in the film where they're just, characters are just walking and talking. You'll see the motorbike out on the hills in the background. Yeah. And you're like, or they'll go to the pier and you'll see the bike coming from literally a dead end. And you're like, what was he doing there? Where was he going? He's not going anywhere. He's not doing anything. He's just driving around the town. Another guy who just walks around with a paint bucket.
Yeah, painting everything.
He's painting everything. Yeah. And of course you've got the very iconic phone booth, which he uses to call back to Burt to tell him about the constellation changes, the aurora borealis, the meteor shower. And that phone booth just became just an iconic spot in the actual town, even though there is a red phone box in Penang, I think it is. Yeah. But the one in the film is a fake one. But still, it just became... The entire town just became iconic as a result of this film.
I love that little bit, though, where he wants to make a phone call and he goes into the pub and he's just like, can we get change for this? And the landlord's just like, hey, everybody, give this guy 10p's. You know, and everybody just, you know, like a little town would, everybody just starts chucking 10p's into Mac's hand. You know, and he goes off and he's got to keep putting them in to keep the phone call going. And then later on, when he wants to make the phone call himself, he just takes them. He just comes into the little hall and he's just like, give me your 10p's. I need to make a phone call. Give me your 10p's. There we go. Yeah, I got the 10p's. Yeah. And he just starts to settle in. It's like when you watch the accountant and his wife. They're always fucking. They're always fucking. They're fucking when the two businessmen turn up in the town. You know, they're fucking at night. There's that even brilliant bit where he says to the guy on the roof, hey, will you stop with the banger for a moment? Yeah, okay then. And he sees his wife and he's like, what are you up to? She's like, nothing. And they start getting it on. But before they get on, he turns to the guy and he's like, hey, you can carry on now just to drown out the noise. You've also got, I believe she was called Marina.
Yes.
And I wasn't too sure about her character. The film subtly hints that she may be a mermaid.
We're keeping an eye on them, though. There's only 50,000 left in the Atlantic right now.
Sailors used to think they were mermaids, yeah?
Aye, they did. They were wrong.
Because you see her at the beginning when they go to like a Knox's scientific division in Aberdeen, and you know they're saying about, oh, this is what the town will look like once we take it apart and build a refinery. And she jumps into the water and she's swimming around, and they note that she can hold her breath for a very long time.
She's got a magnificent pair of lungs.
Oh, yes. A great asset.
5 degrees in oceanography and a very talented programmer.
Well, he says that she's got a magnificent pair of lungs.
Yeah.
To which they had to take that shot over and over again because the actors just kept sniggering and laughing every time they had to do that take.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of sexual references in that one sequence. And then later on, she'll turn up again in the town because she's interested in the sea life and she wants to. She's actually put in an idea to Knox's marina division to obviously build a scientific marina on the island so that they can look after the wildlife and stuff. And Peter Capaldi is smitten by her. He's fallen in love with her immediately. And he keeps seeing her going out swimming. And it turns out that she's got webbed toes. Yeah. And
it is one of the most shocking reveals in the film where he's just smitten with her and he's kissing her knee and he kisses all the way down to her toes. I'm like, okay, a bit of foot fetish here.
Yeah.
It's not really my thing. And oh, the webbed feet.
Yeah, but it's the film. You know, the film doesn't make a big thing about it. It's not like she is a magical mermaid. There's no magic involved in it. But there's that final shot where she's in the water and he walks out towards her. And the way that she dives down again, I was just like, was that a tail? No, I'm pretty sure that was her feet. You know, is she a mermaid? I don't know. There were some bits that kind of threw me off a bit. Like Happer's weird psychiatrist.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought there were some nice funny moments there with that character, but
Yeah.
over time, and after seeing the film again, the film really could have done without that character. I understand that Burt Lancaster's character of Happer, he needs a life coach because he's not satisfied with his life, evidently.
Yeah.
And so it just seems a bit too obvious and very over the top when you consider the rest of the nature of the film.
Yeah.
And so it just seems a little bit jarring, and it almost seems like that's its own comedy film over there,
Yeah.
whereas Local Hero is happening over here.
Astronomy tomorrow. We wish you good night.
Yes?
Happer,
Yes?
you're a shit Happer. A useless piece of crap. Have I told you that already today?
Get off the phone, Moritz. I don't need you anymore. You're not being paid. Now leave me alone.
It worked again, Mr. Happer. This is doing more good than the formal sessions.
There are no sessions anymore. Now leave me alone or I'll call the police.
Yeah, I suppose, like I said, with the running time, if you'd actually taken out those bits and just had Mac maybe call Happer a couple of more times, explain to him what he's seeing, then, you know, it might have shortened down the running time and got rid of those bits, because I wanted to laugh when the psychiatrist is telling Happer, you know, I'm going to come back and smack you in the face and make you feel better, and I'm going to call you a motherfucker and all this stuff. But I'm just like, why is this guy not being fired yet?
Well, he does fire him, and then he calls him up the very next night to tell him that he's an asshole.
Yeah, that's it. You know, the psychiatrist calls up Happer, and Happer puts the phone down, and then goes back to the phone, and the psychiatrist is like, I'm still here. And I'm like, okay, now you're creeping me out. This is harassment, you know?
This is harassment.
Asshole Happer, you'll love it. Crap hound.
But Happer is getting more and more excited the more McIntyre is informing him, like you said, about the Northern Lights and the meteorite shower. And then that starts to bring in the fact that you've got old Ben, who lives on the beach. And I liked the way that this happened. It was kind of a smooth reveal where old Ben lives on a shack on the beach. Keeps himself to himself, you know, kind of lives off the land, keeps the beaches clean, does his own thing. But it turns out that his last name is Knox. And Happer had already revealed to us at the beginning that Happer's father had bought the oil company from a guy called Knox. So old Ben is actually connected to the company.
I don't know whether it is or isn't. I don't know whether it's just a coincidence, just like Mac is listening to Knox radio right at the beginning of the film.
Ah, right. Ah, that's kind of weird. I totally missed that.
You're with KNOX, the sound of Texas South, and overnight Texas South had 1/2 inch of rain, with today an 80% chance of rain in Greater Houston.
But it's the way that old Ben says to him, yeah, I own this beach. I own this beach. Oh yeah, have you got any deeds or anything? Or actually, it's a historical document in Edinburgh, and you're like, right, we really just can't just kick him off then. He fucking owns this beach. And it puts a whole halt on the villagers selling. Because without selling the beach, they've got nothing.
I love the fact that it almost turns into a horror movie when the rest of the town figure out that Ben is holding back, and you just see them all just making their way to the beach and to the shack, and Mac and Gordon's like, yeah, we'll walk him home.
Yeah, because we're starting to get a bit worried about it. But it's the way old Ben's attitude is that in a weird way he's happy with his life. He's settled. He's doing his own thing, but he's not being a complete git about not selling. There's even that brilliant scene where he holds up a handful of sand and says to Mac, "Would you pay me £1 for every grain of sand I've got in here?" And Mac immediately thinks, "Oh, there's millions there. I can't do it." And old Ben says, "Oh, it must be like 100,000, but you missed out on that deal." I was like, "Oh, fuck!" He actually does kind of want to sell. He doesn't want to hold the village back, but at the same time, he doesn't just want to give the beach up. He just doesn't want to get it destroyed.
Look at that sand.
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, they look like very nice beaches, Mr. McIntyre, but see, I only need the one. I have this here. I don't need another one. Besides, I'm not sure that there's a living in any of these beaches. I mean, you've got to go into that kind of thing in detail.
And so it's not long until there's a strange light in the sky. And you're wondering if it's a comet, whether it's another meteor shower. Is it a UFO? Nope. No, it's just Happer turning up on his business helicopter, turning up to close the deal with Ben, essentially.
Yeah.
And, well, primarily just to see the Northern Lights himself. And I like the scene where he is introduced to Ben, and he gets invited straight away into the shack, and they close the doors.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And then you see Gordon and Mac, and they're just waiting outside, and they can hear laughter. And they're like, "Hey, go over and see if they're still laughing." Comes back, and he's like, "Yeah, they want drinks." And before you know it, half the town is just waiting outside. And eventually, Happer comes out, and he's like, "Yep, we're not building the oil company. We're going to build an observation. We're going to build satellites and telescopes." And you're like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, Mac, go home. Go back to Houston. Your job's done here."
Yeah, him and Ben have realised they're kindred spirits. They both just kind of want to keep their eyes on the sky, and Happer realises that he could build an oil refinery here. It'd be nice. It would destroy the wildlife, destroy the beach. Yeah, it'd make loads of money. But that's not really what Happer wants. Happer's more interested in the sky. And, if you've ever been camping or ever been to a small village away from the city lights, there's nothing better than looking up at the sky. And so he's like, "Yeah, me and Ben, we're going to get the telescope out. We're going to be going at it pretty much all evening, looking at the stars and stuff. Yep, Mac, you can go home." And there's a look on Mac's face like, "I don't want to. I don't want to go."
Well, we just had that very important scene a couple of nights before where he gets very drunk, and he comes into the bar and talks to Gordon, and he says to him, "Hey, I'd like to strike a deal with you and take me seriously. I want you to go to Houston, take my sports car, take my luxurious job, which pays more than you've ever seen in your life, and live my life. But leave your wife here with me, and leave your job and profession here, and we'll swap."
Yeah.
And immediately you could imagine Gordon just be like, "Fuck you, that's my wife, that's my life."
Yeah.
But he understands. He is seeing that Mac has changed, and he doesn't see it as a threat, but it kind of welcomes him. It's just a very poignant, very gentle, loving, caring moment.
Yeah.
That just tells you everything. It's also at this point that Mac's transformation is pretty much complete. As you noted earlier, he left his watch in the ocean, and you hear the waves lapping at it before the alarm on the battery gets killed. And then you watch Mac, he no longer wears his suit, but he wears a fishing jumper.
Yeah.
And then he grows out a stubble, and he's leaving behind all of what he was as he's transformed into a Verness villager, essentially.
Yeah.
And so this film originally, as you guessed, had a very, very dark ending where he's sent back to Houston and it ends.
Yeah.
But Warner Brothers were like, you know what? This ending is too bleak and too depressing, so change it. And so they literally, with some leftover footage that they had, for shot of the telephone and Mac ringing that telephone, ringing home. And of course, it's punctuated so hard with Mark Knopfler's soundtrack, and the title song, Going Home, just underlines everything. It is just a beautiful explanation point at the end of this film, and as an audience, you feel like going home.
Yeah.
You feel like when you go back to Houston, you never actually see Houston again because it's all blurred in the background. It just goes to show that that's not where he wants to be.
Yeah.
And you feel it too. If you've made it to the end of the film, you don't ever want to go anywhere else because you get seduced just like Mac does in this film, and it's beautifully done.
Yeah, I was a bit worried about that ending, because he just turns up at his apartment, walks in, and he looks miserable, and I was just like, after everything I've been through, I know this film's quite long and nothing really has happened. This is how we're going to end it, and then it cuts back to the village and the phone ringing, and I'm like, he's contacting. He wants to know what's going on. What's going on? He's probably planning now to quit his job and move back and get a place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, who is the local hero, Ian? It's not really a question you have to ask, but it's one that is often asked anyway.
I'd say it was Ben. I'd say it was old Ben. Because he was, for me, he was kind of the mascot for the village. He's there on the beach, and it's like that part where he pulls out the oranges and he hands them to Gordon McIntyre, and he just goes, "Yeah, I just found these on the beach, about a week ago." And at first I was just like, "Oh my god, they've been sat there in the water," but they've probably been taken care of. They look absolutely fine. They've probably fallen off a ship somewhere and come up on the shore. And it's the way that Gordon's just like, "This is from South Africa," and later on Ben's like, "I found a coconut. I don't know what to do." And you realize that. I looked at his shack as well, and I was like, I want to see inside it. Is it going to be one of those dingy little things? Because it hasn't a door. They climb through the window, and if you climb through the window, is it just a bed and a little stove, and that's it? And if that is it, that's pretty amazing that you could just survive on that. Or has he, renovated the inside of the beach, and you go down some stairs and there's like a lavish fucking, man cave underneath with like a flat screen TV and his own electricity. You never know, and that's what I mean. I just wanted to see more of what was in there because it drawn me in. I wanted to step away from the whole city life and lights and electricity and gas and all the crazy stuff you kind of take for granted because it's just there. And then when you're just on a beach and you've got your own little, the way he makes tea as well. He's like, "I've only got one cup." I've got one for me and one, and you two will have to share. It's just like,
See, I don't think anybody really is the local hero. I think the town itself is the local hero. It's the town itself which seduces Mac into falling in love with its inhabitants and the characters within it. And so I think they're all heroes in their own way. And I think the film challenges its audience to decide for yourselves. And I think it comes from your own perspective as to what makes a hero. And the film definitely plays on your understanding of life in general, really.
Yeah.
I have quite a few memorable moments in the film. And, they're the oddities, like the baby. That no one knows who the parents are.
Yeah,
it's just like
me out as
we
well.
all just look after this baby. Doesn't matter. I like the Russian guy that turns up.
Yes,
and I just thought you don't always catch it straight away, but the first child that he's introduced to has his haircut and is wearing identical clothing to him.
Yeah,
and then when you see the Russian doing karaoke and you see the admiration and affection all these women have for him, and you're like, they've all bedded him, and they're all carrying this crazy Russian sons.
Well, that's it. He's gotten off the boat. He's a complete stranger, but he's got all these tales of life and the treats, all the bottles of vodka and brandy that he brings.
Yeah. Like I said, I also love the motorbike guy. I love the rabbit sequence. There's the moment when they're sat at the dinner table and they're eating, and then it's revealed that they've just eaten Trudy.
How's the casserole de lapin?
Excellent, terrific, thank you.
Lapin. That's rabbit.
Is this my rabbit?
Yes. Harry.
Trudy.
We don't allow animals in the bedrooms. I should have told you sooner.
It's a pet, not an animal. It had a name. You don't need things with names. This is horrific.
That was awesome scene. That was awesome. You kept seeing them sit down and having meals. And Wedge Antilles kept coming in saying, how's the meal? Oh, yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And he comes in this one time and says, what do you think of this such and such casserole? Oh, yeah, it's really lovely. And because Peter Capaldi can speak different languages, he goes, that means rabbit. Did you just cook our rabbit? And, Wedge is like, yeah.
It had a broken leg. It wasn't going to recover. There's no vets out here. And you see Mac playing with the bone, the broken bone in the casserole dish.
And it's the conversation. So, was that a white wine sauce? Yeah, it was actually. It was. Did you enjoy it? It was delicious.
I didn't know it had a name.
It's okay, Stella.
Oh, look, you don't have to finish it if you don't want to. How was it, anyway?
It was nice. Apart from it being Trudy, it was nice.
My favourite scenes, the rabbits, the rabbit casserole scene was absolutely brilliant. Like I said, I liked the locals in the church. They're having this town meeting about what Mac's there for. News travels fast, and the priest goes outside to speak to Mac and Oldson. And the villagers are all listening in, and the priest is trying to pretend like nobody's there. And it's the way that Mac and Oldson are walking away, and you see all the villagers skirting out of the church. And Oldson just kind of looks over with this look on his face like, they were. But he doesn't tell Mac, and Mac's just looking off in the distance like, yeah, this is really good. They're playing right into our hands and stuff like that. That was really good. And I also love the beginning car journey between Peter Capaldi and Paul Riegert, where he says to him, he goes, what are you thinking about? Girls. Naked girls. In fish tanks.
What are you thinking about?
Girls. Naked girls.
Me too.
In a fish tank.
Yeah.
And that was it. I was just like, that's just really nice. It was just really nice to settle you in, and then the rabbit gets hit and then it gets eaten and you're just like, oh my God.
There are many magical moments in this film. It is truly a treasure of a film, and I highly recommend it. It's a near perfect film. It's an amazing experience that really just very gently washes over you. And I had no qualms with the running time, and I felt the loss that Mac feels when he's sent home at the end.
Yeah.
When the film ends and you're no longer there yourself, it very much questions yourself, your own life and perspective, and what everything means. And for such a small film to have such an impact and to still be able to raise those issues with audience members to this day, it's just a huge credit to local hero and Bill Forsyth for being such an amazing, amazing talent. And I really do think it's a shame that he's not made quite as many films as perhaps I would have liked.
See, I do recommend this film, but at the same time, I'm not gonna say you have to see it, because, like I said, for me, I got oversaturated with, like I said, all of the good stuff in movies, and so when I sat down and watched this, I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but I was very surprised at the end. If you're one of these people who sits there and moans about Michael Bay, big, massive, explosive movies, or J.J. Abrams glaring in the eye, or you're oversaturated with superhero movies or horror movies and all that, take the time to watch Local Hero. It's like a palate cleanser. It'll just, like Gary said, it'll wash over you. And by the time you get to the end, you'll be like, that's filmmaking. That's acting. That's what a film is like when you just have some people acting and a camera, and there's no blood, guts, gore, great special effects, CGI, all this other crazy ass shit that they slam into films nowadays. This is just a film, and it's a nice film. Burt Lancaster is awesome. I've always loved Burt Lancaster movies, but he just settled in really nice as this eccentric old man who just wanted to do something other than what he was doing. Same with Paul Riegert. Peter Capaldi is amazing, and Wedge Antilles. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's got Wedge Antilles in it. Just watch it for that. You know, everything else, yeah, it's just really warm and gentle.
Saying that meteors are always a good sign of a comet, and that stuff we saw coming from Leo the other night may just be an indication of what might be happening in the future. With regards to comets, of course. I will probably just keep
Morris, you idiot! Get off this building! I'll have you certified!
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Here, Happer, and you're still a useless mutt.